Basically, negotiators now have 6 days until ministers arrive. Once those ministers arrive, they will have 2 days before the heads of state and government arrive. So my challenge to people is get the basic work done in the first week.
The climate conference in Copenhagen is warming up, so to speak. A new report is circulating saying that the decade of the 2000s will be the warmest in modern times, unless, of course, it suddenly gets very, very cold in the next few weeks. But what's getting more attention is a suggestion by Denmark that poor nations be divided between really poor and somewhat poor for the purpose of getting financial help to meet emissions goals. I talked to the Times' Andy Revkin, and I asked him about both these developments on Tuesday.
I think there's broad recognition here that warming, the trend in warming globally that we've been on for a while is unabated. And I think each of these elements helps maybe with some countries reinforce that there's no out clause here. There was some discussion, especially in some of the press, more conservative areas, countries that don't want to deal with global warming had tried to imply the data we're showing there's global cooling now. But year-to-year fluctuations are different than trend, and this basically says the trend is
continuing, right? You are also reporting that there's likely to be much tougher negotiations. There's some, tough negotiations beginning this afternoon. And what will the subject of those negotiations be exactly?
The heat today in the negotiations is between the developing countries and the rich countries. Again, as it's been for a long time on the blog and in our pages. Times since 2007, we've been writing about what I call the climate divide. And basically, there are a lot of countries in the world, most countries in the world are not yet rich and would like to get out of poverty. For them, growth is the key. And so any idea that they're going to be hampered with imposed limits pressed by the rich countries is just unacceptable. And today there was a Danish draft text that was kind of like a trial balloon leaked out, and now it sort of fueled the anger of developing countries, saying you're trying to impose on us restrictions, we're not going to accept that, and they still see inadequate steps from their point of view from the rich countries, which have added most of the greenhouse gases that humans that have built in the atmosphere in the last 100 years.
Andy, I know you're having a busy day. I'm going to let you go in just 1 minute. But before I do, give us a sense of the scene there, the color, the protests, what's going on kind of outside that room that you're in.
There's a lot of activity. There hasn't been any of the real street protesting that I think we'll probably wait till next week when the world leaders start to assemble here. Right now, it's still mainly what are called Sherpas, the low-level diplomats who are trying to erase some of the brackets in these texts and that kind of thing. The real heated reaction, and there's a big element of the environmental community that's growing increasingly frustrated with the pace and ambition of the talks. This has happened before. This time, I think the potential for some pretty strident emotions to be displayed on the streets, and even here in some cases, is pretty high.
So there's probably some excitement to come.
Yeah, next week is crunch time.
Andy, thanks so much for your time.
It's my pleasure.